Here are two sound features that are only used with steam locomotives. You can set the chuff rate on a steam locomotive to be absolutely prototypical if you want to. Real steam engines, like the 765 here, have 4 exhaust beats per revolution of the drive wheels. There are 2 cylinders, and they both produce a power stroke in each direction. This results in 4 evenly spaced exhausts per revolution of the big drive wheel. Look carefully, you'll see and hear those 4 exhaust beats for each time the big drivers go around. Most O-gauge model steamers come from the factory set at only 2 chuffs per revolution. Now, if you like to run your trains fast, you probably want to keep that setting. But if you like to run your trains slowly, setting the chuffs to 4 per revolution makes a big difference. Here's how to do it. Select the engine you want to set and get it running slowly. Then press Menu, press the wheel to select the sound menu, scroll to chuff rate, and press the wheel again. You'll then see a series of numbers above the soft keys S1 through S4 and an arrow above the S5 key. Pressing the arrow shows you the other options available for this feature, and you can set up to 16 chuffs per revolution if you want to. Geared locomotives like Shays, Heislers, or Climax will use these higher settings. A good setting for a Shay would be 9 or 12. But for our big steamer here, we want 4. I'll just press 4, the number will highlight, and I'll press the thumb wheel to set it. You'll hear the change instantly. Look at that. With 4 chuffs and all that synchronized smoke, that locomotive almost looks real. And do you notice how slowly and smoothly it's running? In fact, I'd say that engine is running exactly 7 scale miles per hour. How do I know that? When you're running Protosound 2 locomotives in the command mode like this, you control their speed in actual scale miles per hour. The LCD screen shows you the exact speed you're running, and as you can see, it says this locomotive was going 7 scale miles per hour. It'll stay at that speed, uphill and down, with or without a load, and you can actually dial up 1 scale mile per hour if you want, but I have found that some locomotives won't run smoothly at only 1 mile an hour. However, every Protosound 2 locomotive I've ever operated with DCS ran perfectly smooth at 2 scale miles an hour. With this kind of speed control, you can establish real speed limits on your railroad. If you've got a congested area near the yard or an area with a lot of industries close to the track, you can set a speed limit there and know exactly what the speed is because the remote tells you exactly what you've got set. There's also a way to set a maximum speed for a locomotive too. Setting speeds is part of the control of a locomotive, so we use the control menu to do that. Start by pressing Menu, scroll to Control, and press the wheel. Scroll down to Max Speed and press the wheel again. You'll see a speed displayed. Dial the thumb wheel up or down until you see the maximum speed you want to set, and then press the wheel. Note that the maximum speed choices are in 5 mile per hour increments. Once you have set this maximum speed, the locomotive will not run any faster than this, no matter how much you scroll the throttle wheel. This feature can be a good thing to use for an inexperienced operator. You can give him a remote to use that only has his engine in it with a fairly low maximum speed set. This will help keep an inexperienced engineer out of trouble. I sort of got off the subject of our sound menu with all this speed stuff, so let's go back to the sound menu for a moment. Check out the rest of the sound features. You remember how to get there? Okay. Don't worry, here's a refresher. I'm going to go fast this time, so watch closely. Make sure you have the engine you want to work on set as the active engine, then it's Menu, Sound, scroll to Proto-Chuff, and press the wheel. Proto-Chuff is a subtle but very effective sound feature. Anytime the locomotive is accelerating, the steam exhaust will get a little louder and heavier. If you also have the labored smoke feature turned on, the smoke will get a bit heavier during these times too. I'll show you where to find the labored smoke feature in just a minute. You have two choices here with ProtoChuff. You can turn it off or set it to automatic. Now, it might have made more sense to simply say on here, but MTH has used the word auto because the engine automatically uses this feature whenever it is accelerating. You can also change this manually anytime you want to with the Labor Rev Up button right here. If you press this, the chuffing gets heavier and the smoke gets a little thicker. When you release the button, things go back to normal. There are a couple of other settings which can enhance the use of ProtoChuff, and they're the acceleration and deceleration rates. You can set your engine to respond to speed changes, both up and down, very slowly, like it had a very heavy load behind it. These are settings related to the control of the locomotive, so you'll find them in the Control menu. Press Menu, scroll to Control, press the wheel, scroll to ACC rate, and press the wheel again. You'll see this display, which says SMPH/S. This represents how many scale miles per hour per second the locomotive will accelerate. Scroll the number to what you want and press the wheel to select it. If you set this to 1 or 2, you'll get a very realistic rate of acceleration. However, I have found that these numbers are not precisely accurate as far as time is concerned. For example, with a setting of 1 scale mile per hour per second, the engine should theoretically take 60 seconds to accelerate from a stop to 60 scale miles per hour. It actually does it in about 15 seconds, which is still a nice slow rate of acceleration. You can do the exact same thing with the deceleration rate, and you program it in exactly the same way. If you have just finished setting the acceleration rate, you're already in the control menu, so just scroll down to DEC rate, press the wheel, and scroll to set it to whatever you want. Here again, a setting of 1 or 2 is a nice slow rate of response, while settings up around 10 or 15 will give you virtually instantaneous response. There are two important things to know about setting these acceleration and deceleration rates. First and foremost, don't set either one of them to 0. If you set the acceleration rate to 0, you've just told the engine to accelerate at 0 scale miles per hour per second, which means it won't move. And even worse, if you set the deceleration rate to 0, you've told the engine to slow down at 0 scale miles per hour per second, which means if you do get it moving, it won't stop. I can envision one situation where you might want to use these 0 settings, and it's probably why they're here. And that's on a public display layout running unattended. If you get a locomotive moving, and while it is moving, you go into the control menu and set both of these settings to 0, the speed of the train will not change, even if someone got their hands on the remote and tried to change it. No matter what they might do with the throttle wheel, the speed will not change. To regain control of the locomotive running like this, just go back into the control menu and assign numbers to the acceleration and deceleration rates. The other important thing to consider when running with these slow acceleration and deceleration rates is that you have to start to think like a real engineer. Your train will not stop on a dime anymore. So if you're going to stop in a siding or in a yard track, you have to plan ahead, just like a real engineer. When I'm running nickel plate Burke number 765, pulling a long passenger train, I have to start applying the brakes almost a mile ahead of where we're actually going to stop. That's because real trains weigh thousands of tons and can't be started or stopped quickly. Running your ProtoSound 2 locomotives with the acceleration and deceleration rates set at 1 can provide a very realistic experience of what it's like to run a real train. And it will definitely teach you to plan ahead. You don't have to set the acceleration and deceleration rates the same. If you want to try the slower settings to get a feel for running like this, set the acceleration rate to 1 or 2, but leave the deceleration rate at a higher number, like 5 or 6. This will let you get the feel with working at the slower rates because the train will accelerate slowly, but you can still stop fairly fast if you get in trouble. As you get used to thinking like a real engineer, you can slowly drop those deceleration rates down to where you can set it at 1 and still stop the passenger train right on the mark with the coaches spotted perfectly at the platform. A few minutes ago, I mentioned that the proto-chuff feature worked with another feature called labored smoke. Whenever the heavy chuff sound is activated, whether you do it manually or the locomotive does it by itself, the smoke output increases a little to make heavier smoke when the engine is working hard and accelerating. There are two smoke-related features in the control menu, labored smoke and smoke volume. The labored smoke feature is set to either off or auto, just like the proto-chuff feature. I recommend you set it in auto so you can use this feature. It's really kind of neat. The other smoke-related control is called smoke volume. This controls the overall amount of smoke the locomotive generates. If you like to run with your smoke on but find that you fill up the train room with too much smoke, try setting this to the minimum or medium settings instead of the maximum setting. In the minimum setting, the locomotive will not smoke at all when stopped, and only a very little bit of smoke will come out when it's moving. You get the effect of having smoke without setting off your smoke detector. Jim Barrett let me borrow his beautiful Norfolk Southern SD80 Max so I can show you a couple more features in the control menu, direction control and ditch lights. Using the direction control feature, you can use the remote to lock an engine in forward or reverse by setting the option you want on this feature. Go to the control menu. Now you should be getting used to this by now by pressing menu, scroll to control, press the wheel, scroll to DIR control and press the wheel again. You'll see these three settings in the LCD window under the S1, 2, and 3 soft keys. F/R is normal forward and reverse operation. F/F locks the engine in forward, while R/R locks the engine in reverse. You just press the soft key you want and then press the wheel to save it. It's just that easy. This engine is now locked in forward. To set it back to normal operation, just go to this feature menu again and set it to F/R. The ditch light feature obviously only works with diesel locomotives equipped with ditch lights. You have 4 choices for setting how the ditch lights work. We're still in the control menu. So scroll to the ditch light feature, and this is what you'll see on the soft keys. Off is pretty self-explanatory. The auto option for this feature is probably where you'll want to run your ditch lights. In the auto mode, the ditch lights are on all the time. When you blow the horn, they flash, just like a real locomotive does. A few moments after you stop blowing the horn, the flashing will stop and the ditch lights remain on. If you choose the on option, the ditch lights will remain on all the time and will not flash when you blow the horn. And if you choose the FLS option, the lights will flash all the time whether or not you're blowing the horn.